Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Paranormal Rangers. And Rangers, I do believe we're in our 15th episode. And that's monumental, having just started in January of 2025. How's everybody doing? I'm so glad we're all here today.
Oh, man, time flies when you're having fun. And it never occurred to me that we were already that many episodes in. It just seems like we started just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it goes by fast. Time has a way of catching up with us. How are you doing, Stan? Can Stan
hear us,
me?
Stan?
I can hear you. I don't see Michelle.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
Can you hear her?
No, I can't. I can hear you loud and clear. I got you on camera, but Michelle's no.
I'm not appearing on your screen.
Are you on your phone or your computer?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I'm on my computer.
Okay.
Tell him I'm going to be asking him how's he doing today.
Yeah, she's just asking how you're doing.
Yeah, I can't hear her, or
okay.
it just shows
selective hearing. That's I always get accused of having that.
Yeah, you're coming in loud and clear and visually everything, but nothing for her.
Oh, okay. We'll be doing some translation today, obviously.
There she.
It's been advised that tell him, Jonathan, to leave and come back into the studio.
I can see you now. Everything's working.
Oh, okay.
Okay, good.
So the question I was asking you, Stan, how are you doing today? We were making.
Now you went back out.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's great.
Okay, you sure that UFO isn't?
Yeah,
with you.
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to log out and log back in.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. You guys continue on.
Okay. You know, Jonathan, what I've noticed the last couple of times we've been on air, you know, we've had some pretty interesting subject matter. Our technology is not working up to par like it usually does. I don't want to make it mean anything, but, you know, maybe the sensitivity of what we're talking about.
Well, I know that this last week we had a Category 5 sun flare event.
Yeah.
And so that's been scrambling a lot of the communications all around the world. And then again, you know, like I said, you know, a while back, government might have that nondescript van parked down the street, you know, blocking some of the signals.
Yeah, the Mindy and Melissa show. In fact, we're going to re-record episode 2 and 3. The logistics on that one were just terrible, and you know, and going back to review it, it was not one of our best shows, but things happen, and we're real people and on a live network. So, anyway,
Yeah.
Today, you know, it's and thank you for that update on the flares, because yeah, I've noticed, and it affects the body too as well. You know, and I'm sure you've been feeling it. I don't know if you could tell the audience, but you have not felt your best this week.
No, I caught a mild case of bronchitis, and so I've just been feeling exhausted, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, we don't need to go on the storyline as to what you had to do to get in order to feel this today a little bit better than you had been. You know, it's really interesting. The topic of our show last week, we had some glitches too. And this topic of the ant people and other unknown phenomena, I really want Stan on this show because I wanted him to share a recent event that he had just had in his home. And we had that discussion, and as well as you have had it with him, talking about how this phenomena keeps interacting with all of us. I feel like I've been at rest a little bit, and I'm about to embark on going back up to the Uinta Basin and to see what is going up on there. A little hesitation because I know the energy is really quite interesting. Every time I go up, and I have this little blue thing that keeps going in and out of my realm here. Now, can you hear us and see us, Dan? Hi, are you welcome back?
Oh no. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, John, but I'm not getting Michelle's video
Okay.
or her audio. There she popped up.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, that was interesting. We were talking about this flare stuff that's going on in our universe, in up there in the cosmos. John kind of reiterated what
Yeah, because you know our solar system is the only one in the entire universe. So.
Right, that gets affected, right? Not anybody else. Stan, I was just telling them, the audience, that you had gone through some interesting things this week, and we had that discussion earlier about an event that occurred at your home. Would you like to share that so we can start moving on with the ant people and other known unknown phenomena and what you uncovered?
Yeah, this would fit the other unknowns.
Yes.
As John and Michelle know, we live paranormal. There's no escaping it for us in some way or the other. It's always there. And so on Sunday night and Monday morning early, around 3 a.m., for some reason I'm awake, and it's quiet. You know, in my bedroom, I have it set up where I have a box fan in my window, and it draws air out. And then I have another set of fans that are inside the bedroom that keep the room cool. So the bedroom window is open. And so around 3 a.m., I hear this very distinct growl. And so I stop and I listen very intently, and it never did make any other noises or sounds. I did look out the window to see if I could see anything, but nothing ever made itself known. I did get up and snacked on some leftover KFC chicken in the fridge, and but nothing ever made any sound. I did notice some unusual markings in the soil outside my bedroom window the next morning. But later I was able to determine that the markings I was seeing, they weren't bovine or equine or canine or feline in nature. They looked as though if you took a baseball bat, you know, in the large end of it, tamped it on the ground, and I couldn't tell, you know, what it was. I got to looking really closely at it, and you could see these little striations within the impression itself. And then I did some research, and I was able to determine that it was house sparrows that take their little dirt bath to keep the mites down, you know. So I determined what the markings were from, but the growl I'm still working on. So it's pretty. The growl wasn't like a canine or feline type growl. I know me and John have heard mountain lions at times in the field, and I've been stalked by mountain lions and things like that. But this one, it was unusual. It was odd. Didn't fit within the catalog of things that I know to have a distinct growl. So anyway, that was my paranormal for the week. So
I appreciate that.
And just so our audience knows, when Stan was telling me about this, and he says, and then after that, I went in the kitchen. I thought he was going to say, yeah, I smoked myself, I smoked the house, and did all this other, and made my prayers to the. And he says, and then I snacked on some chicken. And I thought, okay.
They brought on an appetite, right?
Well, it just shows you that we deal with this stuff so often that sometimes it just doesn't. Most people, if I could tell a real quick story, when we were in Toronto, a group of people went out into, as they call it, the bush. And we were in Ontario at the time. And they went out and they heard some low growl in the brush. They came running back so fast. I've never seen old people run like that. I mean, I was ready for one of them to drop over from a heart attack or something. That they just came bombing back into the place. And I told him, I says, the only thing you have to do is run faster than the slowest person and you're good. But they were shook up. They would not go back out into the late evening again. That's how badly it shook them up. And me and Stan were sitting there just kind of chuckling about them because I said, welcome to the bush. So,
Your introduction, right?
yeah.
We did hear it the night that we were out in the fire too. We heard it, but no one moved. Everybody felt that the fire would have kept the safety of the group. Plus, we're in a group, and you guys were asleep, but we heard the growl too. So, but
when the fire's going, then it can just pick out one of you that it wants.
That's right. And the person furthest from the fire, they'll probably go after. Just to share a story about what Stan is talking about, I was up in the Uinta Basin about 3 years ago. Maybe it was 2 years ago, and I went to a birthday party for a friend who has a private farm. And we all decided we wanted to tent camp, and they are now just getting to build their residency on this particular farm, and it's a pretty big farm. And I decided I wanted to be the furthest tent out of the property, and there were tents set up all over the property, and people were picking and choosing where to sleep. So I have a favorite show I like to watch. At the time I was watching Yellowstone, the series, and I happened to hear a story that the coyotes were nearby. And and then this individual friend of mine says, don't worry about it. I have a lot of fencing around, and you're pretty protected. Well, it was really interesting and strange as I was watching the episode of Yellowstone. I don't remember which episode, but all of a sudden I heard this low growling going on. And I'm just like, okay. And something started to circle my tent. And as I saw, you see dogs and they have that same, you can see them and you don't make a noise. And I did not make any noise. All of a sudden, the shadow stood up like a dog. And there was an apparition outside my tent, or a shadow. And I was like, no way, this can't be what I think it is. and then it circled the tent that I was sleeping in. I'm like, okay, what weapon do I have around me, and how am I going to handle this situation? I've got my iPad. I just hit it with the iPad. I mean, you have to think like in the moment, right? How am I going to protect myself? And then I heard that same growling that you heard, Stan, and all of a sudden the shadow came down, and it was almost like animated, like a cartoon. And the cartoon figure came down really slow, and I was like, am I really seeing this? It looked like a cartoon character on a TV show. And it came really shaky. And I just froze there, and I was just saying prayers in my mind and said, "Don't fear, just don't fear, don't fear." And I ended up sleeping, not running out or anything. I didn't freak out or anything. But boy, the next day, I let it be known that something was outside, and then a friend of mine says, "Hey, you're coming over to my condo in the town, and you're not staying out here." And I think a lot of people packed up too. And
I remember going back to the early episodes beyond Skinwalker Ranch when those individuals that were part of that formed the main team within that group of that early production. They were getting a feel for the location and conducting some early experiments and stuff. And I remember there was one episode where they had an encounter with some type of being or some apparition or something, and in that, when me and my sister were watching it, playing it back, I could distinctly pick up on a really unique, deep, throaty growl that was in that episode, and the people, the characters, that are part of that show, they didn't even pick up on that particular, the sound of that growl, but it is there. I mean, people can go back in those early episodes, and if you listen closely, you'll hear something that's there is making a deep throaty growl. From time to time, these things are there, but then again, John and I, and even you, Michelle, I think we've learned not to give in to displaying or even having the emotion of fear with a lot of these different types of entities, and some of them try to elicit some type of fear response from individuals, and you can see that in some of these television shows that deal with hauntings and paranormal and that kind of thing. They're jumping and running. But anyway, I just want to make that comment. So I guess we should jump into the main part of our
title.
Yeah, our agenda.
The Ant People. This is an interesting photo. The Ant People of the Hopi legends. And are you guys familiar with that legend?
I am familiar with it in that a good friend of John and I that passed not that long ago, an individual named Clifford Mahudi. He was a Zuni elder, and he was a spiritual person and medicine person, and he taught John and I a lot in the latter years of his life. And John and I had so much respect for this individual. But he was well versed in not only the Zuni culture, but he was very knowledgeable with the Hopi people and even Navajo to a great extent. And there was the stories and that he held from ceremonies and things of this, that he would include these stories of not only Kachinas but the ant people. So very, very interesting part of their creation legend and that kind of thing. So
Yeah, in Hopi culture, there was a great flood, just like everybody else has flood stories.
Mm-hmm.
And the story goes that the ant people came to the Hopi and told them, "Come with us, go underground." And they went underground with them, and they were able to seal off those entrances, and the Hopi people survived that way. Um, just so people know, this whole area up in northern Arizona is split with tectonic cracks from past volcanic activity and the meteor strike at Meteor Crater that radiates out from there for basically 100 miles in every direction. So there's a lot of underground passages. There's a lot of fissures. I've personally gone down 540 feet straight down underground, and in a room in Greer Chasm that they called the cathedral, because when you rappel through the crack, you end up just in midair for about 40 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got down to the bottom, there was dirt and rocks and everything else on the floor. But if you stomped on the floor, the whole floor vibrated. And that told us that the passage kept going down.
Oh, wow.
And there's been stories of people out of Winslow that have gotten lost underground for as many as 6 or 8 days at a time, and came out, found their way out, and were nearly starving when they got out. So,
remember, John, when we escorted that group into that cave in Marble Canyon area?
Paiute Cave.
That even as deep as we got in that cave, there were artifacts of previous cultures that had been there, like sandal-like construction, and different
cordage.
things like that.
Right.
You know, and so, and then I've seen some documentaries not that long ago about peoples or on the other side of the world, indigenous cultures that actually developed cities underground.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, really very elaborate cities that housed tens of thousands of people, underground. So this idea of peoples and beings living beneath the surface of the earth, I think, when people make a reference, just like in the Navajo creation story,
Mm-hmm.
of ant people, that can be interpreted to mean a lot of different things, whether it's even physically viewing a being that has the facial structure that appears like an ant or these type of insects and things like that. So I think for the human race, there's so much that's there that we don't really clearly understand and know. I mean, John and I pose the idea of that there is a connection to other dimensions, just like that we associate with what is told in the creation story, coming through those different worlds, whether it's 4 worlds or the 5 world version, to get to this physical world that we're in today. So I think it's very, very interesting, this idea of ant people.
Stan, you say an interesting thing. We were talking about other cultures, ancient civilization back in the Babylonian time called the ant Anu. And then the Hopi word is also for Anu. And the root word for Naki, which means friends. So there's a theory right now that it could have been the present day Sumerians, the Anunnaki. Were they the ones that came and visit the indigenous on our earth during times of cataclysmic events that were to occur? And if you can go back that far to the Babylonian history, and they're telling of the same history that we're hearing today, and the uncovering of like these petroglyphs, which I'll show you right there, and right here, and sorry, that's not a great, but the legends that we've all been hearing about, could that been that type of being that existed in our galaxy? Like you say, interdimensional beings that came to assist us during when the Earth was going through a cataclysmic event. So is that coincidence or is it evidence?
I think it's open for interpretation. I mean,
there's so much going on. You have in South America, in one culture, you have basically what they were calling a gate, or a portal, for lack of any better word.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just carved into the rock, and it just looks like a doorway in the rock. It doesn't go anywhere. There's a hole in the middle, probably to put something there, and nobody really knows what it was, but the people of that time said that they traveled through that gateway. And to me, that sounds suspiciously like a portal. And we just don't understand how it works. But, and then like you have the Gila River tribe has a mountain range that they call the Estrellas. And Estrella in their language means Stargate.
Mm-hmm.
And the government is actually actively looking for a Stargate or Stargates.
Yeah, people, we physically want to know what these Stargates look like. I got a picture and I was trying to download it, but a friend of mine showed me this tree and she took a photo in the Uinta Basin just the other day. And she goes, "What's that hole in between that tree?" And I said, "Oh, I have similar ones that I have taken, but mine have faces around it. My photos have the faces. And like very uncomfortable faces coming out of my photo." Well, I told her, I said, this could be like what you're talking about, a vortex. Could have been a Stargate. She said the energy felt really weird too as she was taking the photo. So do we know what these things look like, or do we get caught up in time loops? That's an interesting question. Something
I think there's a lot of different variations on this idea of a portal or Stargate, or anything where we have this crossover from our physical space and time that we are in, and other locales, whether that's traveling to some other known location, like within the galaxy or universe, or to some other realm or plane of existence. I mean, if you can look at the references to like the Navajo creation story, and there's distinct descriptions given for each of those worlds. So are those different planes of existence, or are they other actual planets or universes? Or I know within the Hopi creation story, they talk of a number of different universes. I think I read, if I'm correct, 9 universes. So
Mm-hmm.
I think if you go back and look in within different indigenous stories, and they're talking about their history and these things, you'll see that there are these references to different planes of existence and locations. So
I think sometimes we like to do interpretations of what we're seeing or not seeing. And but when you have evidence of cultures, petroglyphs, and things like that in existence, to saying this is something that they're writing on the walls, or they're telling the story, is like today, is like the petroglyphs were basically a way to tell other people that things are coming about. This is what's happening today on our travels, so on and so forth. But I think the evidence is there.
right.
Well, we always need to remember that our interpretations are based on our experiences. And so if you don't have any experience, you go back to your own experience and try to interpret things.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the interpretations down through the years about Native culture have been just absolutely wrong, diametrically opposed to what was actually going on. And so you hear a lot of stories back in the 1800s that the natives were having war dances,
Mm-hmm.
and they were actually having religious ceremonies or giveaways or things like that. And the people would panic and say, "Oh, they're doing a war dance. They're going to go on the war path," and they'd get the military all wound up, and everybody would bring guns and just start shooting. So different time, but same thing. We had those interpretations.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to remember that with aliens in general. Okay, I'm going to be generalized here. Even the government says that there's possibly 54 different races of alien that are visiting us. This is according to the FEMA website that I looked at back in the 90s.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The FEMA emergency manual. So how I look at that and I think, how did they come up with 54? Did they have a census? The census taker went over there and spoke alien and asked them about their families and everything. I have no idea. But somewhere along the line, they got the number 54. And, it just boggles the imagination how they came up with this. But, I always point to the Hopi with their Kachinas that there might have been 250 to 350 separate races that they contacted, their high priests, that were traveling. So, who's to say? And we look at something insect-like, so we call it an ant person. The
Mm-hmm.
Greys look like ant persons.
They do.
So
Species. Here's a
and
photo.
Stan's seeing those up close. Oh, there you go.
There it is. And then she said there was this light below it. Not to interrupt any guys, just letting you know that I got a copy of that. I was working away at that. I do have one similar to hers, but a very odd. But you can see the red, and you can see Something
It, look,
reflecting on.
it looks like the Apple logo.
The apple in between.
Yeah, it's got a bite taken out of it on the right side, and
Yeah.
it's got the little apple leaf on the top.
Yeah, I thought that was very fascinating because I do have actual photos in my own library that show that, but mine have faces that are around the tree. And it was an anomalous
Well,
photo.
we always have this idea that any of these dimensional gates need to be right where we're walking,
Right.
and they don't. According to Navajo culture, they had to climb up using construction material to get up there, and to get to a hole in the sky. The portal that was seen near north of Chaco Canyon was the same thing. They saw a ripple and a hole appear in the sky, at 1 or 2 in the morning, and they viewed it. They said it distorted the stars around it, and it held there for about 15 or 20 minutes and then disappeared. So we always have this idea, and I had the same idea when I was doing archaeological law enforcement. You go to these canyons and you're standing there looking up and you see these petroglyphs that are up high on the wall. Well, guess what, folks? Back then, maybe the sand was that high, and all those years of erosion and wash going down the canyon just undercut all that. And now when you're over there, it seems like, wow, that's 20 feet up.
True.
So true. Different.
Look at places like Monument Valley that, today they have these huge structures, within this valley, Monument Valley. But just like you said, John, at one time, that was all level and flat up at the highest level of those monuments that are there. It's just simply over a certain amount of time, erosion has taken place and is still happening to this very day. If you're out there and you can't see because of the sand and the dust and everything, it's still happening and occurring and forming to this very day. And things over tens of thousands and even millions of years, things change. And
I like this comment, Younger Dryas, when the flood story, as you guys were talking about earlier, came through. They say now the Grand Canyon was formed by the Younger Dryas when that flood came. It carved all the canyons to be what they are today.
Right.
That's the concept of that. I thought that was really interesting that a viewer would say that.
And
there's
when
so many theories.
When you're floating through that canyon, those looking up at the rim is humbling.
Yeah.
And Stan can attest to this because both of us we had to go float down the canyon separately on 2 different trips.
They forced us.
Yeah, they forced us to. It was terrible. Eating gourmet food every night and fishing every day. But yeah, when you look up at the rim, and one of the guides says, what's up there? And everybody goes, what? And he says, nothing but fear. So, because you go up there, boy, you'll get dizzy looking down. That's why they got railings up at the top. But when you're down there, you realize that was all eroded to the point where, through basalt, through volcanic rock, it wore it away. That's why they have lava falls.
Right.
So, the forces of nature are there, and man has been here much, much longer than any scientist gives credit for.
Anciently speaking, right? Because we do have rock art history, which tells us what has been going on. It's just that we have not come to the conclusion of what that really represented. I mean, like you said, the earth has, terraformed itself in different ways. And today we have what we're living above ground. You know, our ancestors say that they lived underground. And
modern science tends to look at people from those early civilizations as being very primitive and very,
Mhm.
you know, very uneducated. And for me and John, that's not the truth. That's not truth. These people back in those times, in the various cultures and indigenous civilizations, they knew a lot more than what we know today. And they
Yeah.
had their own technologies. I think that there was visitations uh, from other civilizations out there visiting Earth and sharing information with the people of Earth at that time, and gave them certain technologies.
I
Yeah,
agree.
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say the Aztecan language, the alphabet is very sophisticated, yet looking upon it, it looks like a bunch of random characters. Then there's no interpretation because they didn't have the stones that we have today to interpret. But that is a very complex language, the Aztecan language. And today it is revered for the communication that occurred between the Aztecan culture. And if you go back and recently I was in Belize, and you go back to their antiquities, their artifacts. I mean, they go back 10,000 years, way back past their own heightened civilization, which is, I think, during the colonial times. And so history, they go way back. I mean, they go way back. And I even asked the guy who was our guide, I said, how far? And he didn't really know how far they went back. And then I went and saw where an archaeologist had done the work, and it was 10,000 past their height of their civilization. If you ever see that movie done by, what was his name that did, it was a very violent movie. I guess I can't remember.
That's most of them today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I knew his, I can see his face. I'm trying to remember his name, but the portrayal of the Aztecans, that they were unsophisticated, more like
apocalypto.
Apocalypto, and it wasn't even that way. In fact, I found out the people who were being sacrificed, they volunteered. They thought it was an honorary thing, not forced. It was an honorary thing to die and be sacrificed to the gods. So there's that other misinterpretation that we have in our history. So what are people going to say about us today being Native American? And we're talking about the phenomena, the aliens, the ant people. We're talking about all this. It's based on interpretation of today.
Yeah, again, it's what we've experienced and what we've learned in our lifetimes. But I tell you what, you go talk to some of the very elderly Navajo people out here, talk to the elderly people of just about any tribe. Those guys are full of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
They are absolutely just overflowing with all kinds of knowledge. And they have names for the stars in their native languages. They have medicines. And I don't know if people out there know this, but a lot of medicines that we use today for headaches, for, what is that, malaria?
Mm-hmm.
All those things came from Native Americans.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a very sophisticated medical knowledge. And you look at things like, I don't know how many of you know about the Koso artifact. They found a lump of coal with a piece of insulation material sticking out of it that looked like ceramic. And they took x-rays and they found threads, and they found something that looks like a modern day spark plug, and it was in a lump of coal that was about 1,000,000 years old, and they cannot say that somebody dropped a spark plug in the coal field when it was first forming. We don't know.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing what technology they have. Like today, our trash is going to be our archaeological remains, especially with the computers. What are people going to say about us 10,000 years from now? And then look at our trash heaps, and then they can get to make interpretations. And that's why we're doing this show, so we can leave a record, right?
The record stuck.
Exactly. So, in honorary of Clifford, Bill was able to find this photo. This was a religious man in his culture, but he put himself out there to teach others about his culture, but he was not well received in his own tribe. So, to you, Clifford, an honorary.
Yeah, so like I said, the Greys could be mistaken for ant people, and they're small too. There are many, you have mantis people, you have people that look like lizards, the reptilians, you have the Nordics that look very tall and blonde, and so obviously they call them Nordics. But there's so many different types. There's even tall Greys, believe it or not. And the Greys are said to be almost mechanical, like they're like a cybernetic organism of some kind. They don't really think for themselves, and they don't have any emotions. It's been said that they have no souls, but this is our religious groups that are talking about this, that again, interpreting things based on their knowledge. So, you have to look at these things rather critically and realize that you're the one who makes that interpretation through the lens of your existence.
True.
And because we don't have the past written language like we do the Aztecs, we like to interpret and make movies that depict always fear-based. Don't you find that? Instead of let's learn from their life and and if we have different species.
Media wants to sensationalize everything.
Yeah.
It's what, if you look at the news, the world's coming to an end, and there is a basis in that idea of fear, and it gets people's attention, and so they feed on that. They try to take advantage of that.
Yeah, we've talked about that before. John talks about that we want to share knowledge, and I wish we had more time to really dig deep into the mythologies, is what it's referred to today. I had an audience member that says he hates the fact that mainstream society refers to our stories as mythology. Our song lines, our oral history is unchanged for thousands of years. And that's a whole subject we could do a show on, is what are some of our mythologies, even though it's been mainstreamed. What did the old elders do, or how do they teach us about the cosmos, or even our today, the medicines, and how we live by that? How do we interpret our lives through the stars? Right now, Jonathan, you said the solar flares are affecting humankind. Did they not do that back there anciently? Let's teach others about the solar flares and how they interact with the body and the maybe possibly the polars of this earth.
Well, I think the solar flares disrupt a lot of different things here on this earth. Not only the technologies and things that we have in place, but electronics and those things, internet, radio communications. But as human beings, we're also affected by these things, the solar flares and stuff. It affects our bodies and our minds in a lot of different ways. And so some days we wake up and we don't feel right. We feel off, for that day. And we're trying to go about our day doing the things that we need to get done, but we're also faced with the environmental factors of living on this little blue marble, this little blue planet. It's affected by many, many different things. So,
like they say, the full moons can affect the body too, and the tidal waves, the tides of the oceans can, affect the polarities, things like that. Some people get sick to their stomachs when there's a full moon.
right.
Okay, I see that we've just got a few minutes left. Thank you for letting us share our meager pool of knowledge here, because we definitely don't have all the answers. We're searching for them just like you are. But thank you for being with us along for the ride, and we're hoping we'll be around for quite a while. Michelle?
Hey, you bet. Hey, guys, I want to remind the audience that there is a book out there that has been written by one of the Paranormal Rangers, Stanley Milford Jr. Go pick up your copy, and we haven't forgot about that, Stan, and you can let us know in the future if you're going to be speaking somewhere and signing books. That'd be wonderful to have you be there and people can come
and
see you.
do you have the other one too? Just for everybody's information, I'll be at the Smoky Mountain Bigfoot Conference in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and get on their internet site and look it up. It's a one-day deal, so I'll be there for that one.
Well, guys, it's been a wonderful subject. It's good to have us all three back on. I know it's been a interesting summer, and we've all dealt with, private things, but it's been wonderful to be here again, and it's been an awesome conversation. And thank you to the audience for being here. You make this show happen. So
Thank you, guys.
Everybody have a great week. We'll talk soon.